Good evening, everybody. Marcus C. Williams here. So, as many of you guys know, I do a lot of things and wear a lot of hats. Not only do I do a lot of community work and ministry, I'm also a business development coach and I also help do professional development. I encourage people to help them build their businesses and I help them guide themselves and grow in the ways and manners that they want to, because it's not always easy to do that yourself. But not only that, I get a chance because of the many different hats that I wear to see a whole bunch of different people and engage with a whole bunch of different individuals from different backgrounds, from different education levels, and from different walks of life. Because of my work in the community, I have seen so many facets of lifestyle in our own city. It's very interesting. So, I want to talk about quite a few things tonight, but I'd like to start off with the crime and the violence. And we all know that a lot of the crime and the violence is going crazy today. And if you're following me from another area, I'm in Rochester, New York, um, which is, I guess, call us Western, but we call ourselves. We call ourselves. We don't call ourselves Western. Anyway, Western New York. But Rochester, we've had a whole bunch of violence, right? So that's number 1, a whole bunch of violence. Violence continues to grow, and it doesn't seem like there's any end to the violence. Just the other day, a business owner, a lady who works in a suburb of our area, who's not too far from where I am, right? Because Rochester is a pretty hefty sized city. It's got 200,000 people in there. And we have some suburbs, but the city itself is only a few miles long, a few miles wide. So Gates is right near where I live on the west side of Rochester. This lady was going out to her car at night and she was murdered by a convicted murderer who was on parole for murder and illegal weapons possession, who had an illegal weapon and murdered her. Now, I mean, I don't know about you, but the irony is not lost on me, and I laugh to keep from crying about how insane it is. That's insane. That poor woman should not have died in that manner by somebody that now will be charged with the exact same crime, not the person that the crime was inflicted upon, but the exact same crime he was out on parole for. He was in there for murder and for illegal weapons charges, and now he's gonna go back in for murder and illegal weapons charges. See, but if we were to have a honest conversation about that, we'd have to talk about comprehensive prison reform. But where I live, Democrats have been in control of the city of Rochester for 50 years. So no Republican has been on any level of government. They haven't been on city council and the mayor's office or in the city school district. So that just gives you some background about the area and the neighborhood and the city that I live in. So all of the policies that are impacting our community would then be have been pushed by Democrats. Now, this is important to note for what I'm going to say following up on. So, moving forward, talking about comprehensive prison reform. Now, comprehensive prison reform in the state of New York would have to be done on a state level. Now, the state is run by Democrats. Democrats say that they care about people. Democrats say that they are the champion of the underserved and they want to make sure that they're helping. Okay, that's fair. I get that. That makes sense to me. I hear you. However, the policies do not align with what actuality is. We have to really, really, really hold our elected officials accountable. A couple years ago, the Democrats in New York said that they're going to pass prison reform, but they didn't actually do that. What they did was they shut down a whole bunch of prisons and let out a whole bunch of criminals. They called it criminal justice reform. But nobody really wanted that reformed. What they wanted was rehabilitation centers to actually be rehabilitation centers, and they wanted correctional facilities to be correctional facilities. And I don't see why that would be a problem. Did that happen? No. Was there any conversation about that? No. Was that all done by Democrats? Yes. But if Democrats say that they care about the people, why wasn't that done? I don't know. And it's crazy because in my city and in my area that's solely run by Democrats, I'm the only person that is willing to talk about comprehensive prison reform or put forth any policies or legislation in regards to that. And I'm a Republican. You understand what I'm saying? So you're telling me that you're Democrats and you care, but your policies don't align with what you're saying and what's happening. I'm a Republican and I'm saying that I care, and my policies and what I'm saying aligns with exactly what I'm saying, but is supposed to be what you're allegedly caring about, but not actually doing, even though you're the ones that are in power. Can somebody make that make sense to me? I'd be very interested to hear about it, because comprehensive prison reform is desperately needed. Let's be honest. If we're going to have people that are going to prison, their rehabilitation and correctional facilities, when they come out, they need to be rehabilitated or they need to be corrected for the actions that they have done. This is very simple, easy, cut and dry. The guy who killed the lady, who was out of jail on parole for murder and illegal gun charges, murdered the lady with an illegal gun. So very clearly, and again, I got to laugh to keep from crying because it's insane. He clearly wasn't rehabilitated or corrected for his actions. It's very evident to see. And now, when we talk about crime and violence in Rochester and in New York State, we have to point out that most of these people have been released 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 6, maybe more, on the same type of crimes that they keep getting rearrested for, and they keep getting back out. So we see a lot of this end up boiling down to the problems with this criminal justice reform that the Democrats instituted circa 2019, with bail reform and raise the age laws and the discovery laws, which are also trash. Don't get me started on that, how they can just tell a criminal, if you tell on them, everything about what you told on them, where you live, and all your information, to come find you and knock you upside your head, if they're so generous, right? Because they could do other things to you, which is crazy and insane. Now, this is a very serious issue. We continue to get reoffenders let out left and right all day long. The police are tired of arresting people, and they're like, we already know these people. You know, I watched a couple months ago I don't know exactly what he is, but he's like a youth engagement, public safety, crime, violence engagement czar or something like that. I don't know, but his name is Victor Saunders. And he said, it's only a few people that are committing all of these crimes, that are continuing to commit all of these crimes. And a lot of them say that they just do it because they can and because they don't have anything else to do. Well, if it's only a few people and they're just doing it just because, lock them up, put them in jail, and then the crime will stop. Like, I don't understand what the short circuit is with our elected officials, that if you put criminals in jail, then they will not be out here committing crime. Like, it's not a complicated facet. Now, people will say, okay, well, Marcus, constitutionalist. Yes, I am. I'm all about that Constitution. Constitution before party. Constitution over everything. Okay, especially the Bill of Rights. Okay, but they're like, you're about the Constitution. How can you want to hold somebody in jail and not give them a speedy trial? See, no, that's not what I said. So first of all, you are entitled to a speedy trial. You do not have to get a speedy trial. Okay. And in certain instances, and we've seen this very lately, people have requested a speedy trial, right? Because their trials were put out many, many months or whatever the case is. But in order to address that, we have to address the serious issue of our judges being overburdened because the prison system is overrun. And I shouldn't say prison system, I should say the judiciary is overrun. They're backlogged upon backlogged upon backlog. Okay. And it's very serious. So now, how do we clear that up? We would clear that up by adding more judges, right? So for me, I'd say add temporary clerical judges, give them 2-year period or what have you. And that way we can clear up all of the backlog in the 2-year period. That'll allow us to actually, well, adjudicate different crimes and stuff and see if somebody should be held longer and stuff like that. But a lot of also what we're seeing is youthful offenders. So now with these juveniles, which goes to the raise the age laws, which is 18, anything under 18 is considered a juvenile, no matter how many times you repeat the same crime, no matter how heinous the crime is or anything like that, you will be charged as a juvenile. That is very problematic because if you've got somebody that's been charged with the same crime of violent assault 4 or 5 times, they should not be getting charged as a juvenile because they very well, daggone it, sure, know exactly what they're doing. And that's a very serious problem. Hey, Joey, I see you there, brother. But that's a very serious problem. And we need to make sure that we're fighting to change that. We can't have these people running our streets. And I want to point out something. If we look at the neighborhoods that all of these violent crimes are, largely they're in very, very, what would you say, specific neighborhoods and areas and communities. Largely underserved communities are the ones in Rochester and in the rest of the state, but that's a bigger conversation. But in Rochester, they're largely the underserved communities that are being impacted the harshest by the crime. You take the criminals go to jail, maybe they go to prison, right? Even though most people aren't even doing that right now, but let's just say that they do, right? They get out of jail. There's no connection with jobs. They're put in halfway housing, some of them don't even get that and go back to the people where they were. And none of those places are healthy environments for the or conducive for them to become productive members of society. Nobody's doing anything about that. Okay. But where do they go? They go back to impoverished, underserved communities. And then you wonder why there's more crime there. You get these people that you're letting out on appearance tickets for breaking into people's homes, for busting out people's windows, for stealing their vehicles, for carjacking grandmas at the light, for beating an old lady upside her head at a bus station and stealing at a bus stop and stealing her purse. Like, this is real. All of these are real things that I'm mentioning that have happened. You got people on dirt bikes. You got people on dirt bikes perpetrating machete attacks in Rochester. The other day, like 3-4 days ago, we had people on dirt bikes shooting up the neighborhood. You might have missed that story in Rochester. That's a real story that really happened, like less than 14 days ago. I'm not able to recall fully, but like maybe it was last Wednesday or something. It hasn't even been 2 weeks yet, And this is something very serious. Didn't even make the news, really. It was like under one of those things that go under the headlines when the person's talking on the TV and it's all the way down at the bottom of the screen and you got to really read it to see what's actually going on. Marauders on dirt bikes. That's where we're at in Rochester. And you just release them with a slap on the wrist and just let people back out in society. We had an officer involved shooting the other day, and the guy was shooting up the whole neighborhood. He was shooting in 2 different spots. Then the police caught up with him. They had to chase the guy. The police had to chase him, try to taser him. I guess the taser malfunctioned or whatever the case is, or they were struggling for the taser or whatever the case was. And he wasn't able to tase him, and I heard the guy ended up with taser burns. The officer ended up with taser burns on his hands from it or whatever the case is. I don't know if that part's accurate, but that's what I've heard. So I'm going off of that, but I did watch the video or whatever the case is. But he tried to taser him. That didn't work. That did not help. So the guy was trying to fight him for his weapon. And he was like, and you can hear him in the video, oh, shoot me, kill me, all this nonsense. You know what I'm saying? So when that happens, and then the guy gets shot, and now he's injured in the hospital. You know what happens the next day? Before the tape is even released, 3 of our city council members in Rochester go put out a news release, a press release, talking about, oh, we admonish the police. The police are terrible, and the criminal is so fantastic. We apologize to the family that the police were mean and brutalized your family member. But he's out here shooting up the whole damn neighborhood. Now, if you're not familiar with Rochester and the crime in Rochester, we've had multiple houses that have been shot up that have had nothing to do with any of the crime or any of the violence. We've had old people shot in their houses with bullets passing through walls. We've had children near misses. Last year, we had a child that got shot with a bullet that came through their house. You understand what I'm saying? So when you're shooting up the neighborhood willy-nilly and you're not hitting the person that you're aiming at, this is a problem. You shouldn't be out there shooting nobody, but you shooting up the whole neighborhood, and then you expect the police not to address you in such a manner. I mean, what did you expect the police to just let the guy go? He's shooting up the neighborhood, not one location, 2 separate locations in the same community. Like these three, I don't even know what the hell's wrong with them. Okay. It's Mary Lupien, okay, Stanley Martin, and Kim Smith. What in the good goofy gosh is going on with these fools? How are you going to admonish you know what? I'll tell you exactly what it is. They don't live there. They don't live there. They don't feel like they're affected. I don't know where Kim Smith lives, so let me not say she doesn't live there. I don't have a clue, but based on her reaction, I guess she doesn't live there neither. Okay. Now, here's the bad thing about these 3, right? One is absolutely horrible. Okay. That's Stanley Martin. I can't mess with her, not even a little bit, because I think she's fake and she's phony. Okay. And that's not a think. I say think because I'm trying to be nice about it. That is 100% a fact. She does not represent the Black community. She's not even from Rochester. She's a transplant. I don't even know where the hell she actually really come from. Okay. And she come to Rochester trying to preach that she's all about the community, but she's destroying my Black community. She helped provoke all of the riots that destroyed Black businesses, that destroyed Black business corridors in Black neighborhoods and Black communities. Okay. I will never forgive her for that. Okay. Propagating crime in my neighborhood and then saying that you don't want the police in my neighborhood. Bitch, shoot. Ooh, see, look at me. I got a little bit hot. Excuse my language. But you're not from here, bro. Don't tell me what my community needs. Don't tell me what my people in my community need and what we want. You don't speak for my people, bro. You don't live here. You're not from here. Okay. Then she's from the nicer area over in the East Avenue area where they've got plenty of crimes and and the police respond when you call them. When you call them in my neighborhood, if they don't have you on hold for 10 minutes at freaking 911, the police take forever to get there. Don't get me started because I feel some type of way. Now, here's the deal with the other 2, Mary Lupien and Kim Smith, right? Like, I agree with them on certain issues. This is definitely not one of them. And criminal justice and public safety is very, very rare that I agree with them on anything that comes to that. But the fact is that I do agree with them sometimes. Kim Smith was out at the Hall of Justice the other day with, I guess, one of these groups. Maybe it was Vocal New York or something like that. I don't know. One of these groups talking about unjust, what was it? Unjust, I don't even know. It doesn't even really matter. But it was like unjust holding people or something, people that are innocent in jail that are not getting their due or whatever the case is, right? So there's an argument to be made there, right? People that are wrongfully imprisoned, I hear you. I'd be glad to work on an issue or something like that with you. But when you do something like this that's completely out of pocket and out of hand, you make it difficult. I think that Mary Lupien agrees with the general sentiment that there are things that need to be changed and done. And I think that she really believes that she wants to make things better. But she's surrounding herself by these people with these people, including Rachel Barnhart, who's a terrible human being. Okay. And she just continues to say that she speaks for the Black community and she speaks for the underserved. And she doesn't know what it is to be Black, and she doesn't know what it is to be underserved. Don't get me started. But it's Mary Lupian surrounding herself with people feeding her bad ideas. And now she's all up with these communists and socialists and nonsensical stuff that isn't actually achieving the goals that she says that she wants. And this goes back to what I was talking about before about the Democrats saying they're about one thing, but they're not really about that thing, which will take me into my next topic, which is going to be education. So with this being happening, with this crime and this violence and this continued rise of crime, that's largely due to the policies that have been put in by Democrats. Now, our elected officials that run the state on the state level are Democrats. They have a supermajority. So on the state assembly and the state senate, if we want bill reform, raise the age, or any other things changed, or even comprehensive prison reform, which again, we can't even talk about that. If we want any of those things changed, we have to go to the Democrats to get them to work on it, right? But where are they working on that? Nowhere. And in the meantime, people are getting shot outside my house, dying on the corner. Okay. In the meantime, people are overdosing 3-4 people up and down the street. Okay. Now I guess they're moving the homeless encampment from down the street from my house. Okay, which is funny because they're actually opening a homeless place to house the homeless in one of the nicer neighborhoods in our city and on the west side, which is called Cornhill. So they're going to open that and put a whole bunch of homeless people there in a more ritzy neighborhood. I bet you they will not be happy at the end of this. And honestly, I got to say, you guys, you wanted this, most of you. Not all of you, and I'm not saying that you deserve this, but now you'll understand what the rest of us in the community are going through with all of these homeless and drug addicts and mentally ill individuals who are not getting the services that they need. You'll see very soon. As soon as they open that old hotel, used to be a hotel. I forgot what it was afterward. But once they open that, it's a wrap for y'all. You'll see very quickly, and then you'll change your mind. And then you'll say, we don't want these people in our backyard. And I'll be like, I didn't want them in my backyard. And nobody told them to move them from over where the Time Warner building was before anyway. Well, I guess the ritzy people told them to move them because they didn't want them there because they were building high cost luxury housing, which is a whole separate conversation for another day. So, but in that spirit, moving on to policy and how things need to be adjusted and changed, but they're not actually being addressed. Let's talk about education, right? So in Rochester, our educational system is it's the Rochester City School District, the RCSD. It is the largest, most funded school district in the nation. It's always in the top 3. It's number 2 or number 1 right now. I think it's number 1 after the COVID money. Now that the COVID money is gone, I think we're number 2 again. We're always behind or right ahead in the same 3 with Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Now, it's amazing that these top 3 districts, specifically Rochester, have the lowest performing rate, have the lowest proficiency rate, have the lowest graduation rate. And right now in Rochester, we're graduating people that are functionally illiterate. Somebody told me the other day the average reading grade of a graduate in Rochester is 3rd grade. I don't know that that's true. And that's scary. I think it might be less, and that's terrifying because these people have to go out into the workforce. They have to go get jobs. And then we wonder why there's so much crime and violence when you got a person with a 3rd grade, basically a 3rd grade education, a 3rd grade comprehension level, and they can't get a job. Well, how could you? What grade is a 3rd grader? Let's see. You remember that show? Are you smarter than a 3rd grader? Maybe it's a 5th grader, but you get the idea. Like what's in 3rd grade? 3rd grade, 1st grade is what? 6, 7. 2nd grade is 7, 8. 3rd grade is 9, 10. So a 10-year-old. Basically, these high school graduates are basically 10-year-old. What jobs is a 10-year-old going to get? Thank you, Josh. I see you there. Smarter than a fifth grader. You know what I was talking about. But these are even third grade, so they're not even that smart. So what are you going to do with a 10-year-old that's getting a job? How many jobs can they get, right? So now you've got these graduates that are 18 or older, sometimes 17 because you can graduate younger, but basically 18 or older going out, graduating, that don't have an education that a 10-year-old should have. So how are they supposed to get any of these jobs? Now, here's the more concerning part. We have a deficit in the health field. We have a deficit in entry-level positions in cleaning, cooking, retail, customer service. I could go on and on and on and on. And it's crazy because now these jobs that are basic entry-level jobs that normally your Joe Everyman could get, people won't be able to get that are graduating from high school because of the terrible clientele. I don't know what you call them. Prospects, I guess. The terrible prospects for hires that are out there. And then everybody wants $20 an hour to work in a fast food restaurant and then wonders why the burgers, you go to McDonald's, you paying $20 for one meal. Well, that's because they want $20 an hour to work at McDonald's. McDonald's is known traditionally as as America's best first job. Best first job. It's not supposed to be a career for flipping burgers. If you want a career in McDonald's, McDonald's has it all laid out for you to have a career. You go there, you go to manager, you go to this, you go to assistant owner, you go to whatever the case is. And I'm not being specific about the roles, but they got it all laid out for you. They legitimately have it laid out. They've got their own college that you can go to become a McDonald's owner. Matter of fact, you have to go to the McDonald's college to become a McDonald's owner, which is a whole separate conversation, but they got it laid out for you. So you can move up. You should not be working at that job, doing that your whole life. But now here's the problem. Because of all the pushes for people to go and get $20 an hour for a nothing job, inflation goes up. Inflation is the hidden tax that's hurting everybody. Okay? And it's because it's not just McDonald's, right? It's working at Walmart, being a cashier. It's mopping a floor. It's doing this. It's doing that. And the real thing isn't that people need to be paid more. It's that we need to get inflation under control, which is the real problem, which is part of monetary policy, which we need to be talking about the Federal Reserve and the and the U.S. Treasury. Janet Yellen and who's the Secretary of Treasury for the United States of America, and what's his name? Man, I'm not able to stand neither of them. What's her son's name? What's his name? Dang it. Jerome Powell. That's not really her son, but before Janet Yellen was the U.S. Secretary of Treasury, she was the head of the Federal Reserve. She's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Now, the way that everything's written up in America, you're not supposed to have collaboration between the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury, because the Federal Reserve actually isn't a federal entity. It's actually a private banking system, which is a whole nother separate conversation that we really do need to talk about, but nobody wants to talk about that. But back to the education part, right? Every year, and we'll come back to this, every year they get more and more money. Every year, more and more money. They just did a thing tonight. I missed it because I was doing other stuff that I had to take care of. But I will be probably at the one on the weekend. That's going to be at Wilson Foundation Academy. Is it? I think that's what the name of it is. And this goes back to they keep changing the names of the schools and nobody knows what the hell the schools are called anymore. Because they keep shutting down schools. They're shutting down 11 schools. 11 schools they're shutting down this year. How many parents do you think were at that meeting tonight? They're shutting down 11 schools. How many parents do you think? And this is another problem, right? Why aren't the parents getting involved? The parents don't know what the hell is going on. And then stuff happens, and then people are mad. People are mad because they weren't paying attention in the first place to the things that they should be paying attention to. I don't know how to get people to pay more attention to it. I'm not able to focus on the school system right now. I wish I had a lieutenant to focus on the school system for me, but I'm focused right now on the criminal justice system and the criminal justice reform and and making sure that we can have safe streets and safe communities and criminals actually get put behind bars and don't keep getting re-released. It's a problem. People need to be safe in the community. That's why you see businesses closing left and right, and it's hard to incentivize people to come to Rochester because of all the crime. And they don't even publish anything on the news, right? Like you see, oh well, there was a shooting, there might be a this, there might be that ain't enough. That isn't 1/10 of all the shootings that are in our community. And that's not even just the shootings, right? The stabbings. We've had so many we had like 2 people killed, 2 murders by stabbings over the last week, over the last 7 days. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. People getting stabbed all the time. Nobody wants to talk about that. I was downtown earlier today. This dude got a butcher knife. I don't know, 8, 9 inches long. And he says that it's for safety because he doesn't feel safe because it's a whole bunch of crazy people out there. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of crazy people out there. My man is not wrong. My man is not wrong. It's not safe. It's not safe. So I'm not mad that he had a big knife because it's not safe. It's not. You can't leave your house without a weapon. Don't leave your house without a weapon. My advice to you is do not leave your house without a weapon if you live in Rochester. Make sure that you are safe and that you are not sorry. Do not be a victim, be a victor. Okay. But also know the fact that if you can run, do run. That should be your first priority is escape. And your second priority should be safety. And you should be able to make a quick snap decision on whether it's an engagement that you should actually take up and fight in, or whether you should just not resist the situation, judging yourself on what is in your own best interest. Because I very rarely say do not resist somebody that's trying to assail you, but you have to make what the right judgment is for you. Personally, criminals go down, period, and stay down and don't get back up is my personal preference on that situation. But don't be a victim, be a victor. And if you can run, and don't leave the house without a weapon, period. Second Amendment, y'all. Protect yourself. Because like I said, we don't have enough police, which then brings me into the fact that we don't have enough police. Also, they're restructuring the police. Now we've got 5 new districts for the police. And they're like, oh, because of the crime, to help fix some of the issues, we're changing the districts. No, we don't need to change the districts. We need more police. You're going to change the districts? This isn't going to help. It's going to make it worse. Matter of fact, now my Genesee section is even bigger than it was before. It looks like on the map, and we don't have enough officers over here. And I'm not saying that I don't care about the rest of the city. I care about the rest of the city, okay? Especially parts of the, I don't know what you call that area now, what that section is, Goodman, I guess, and Lake, higher crime areas and stuff like that. Listen, I say pull all the people from all the officers that would patrol within 5 blocks of Mary Lupien and Stanley Martin and Kim Smith's house and pull all of those officers, and we'll take them and let their neighbors go bang on their doors and demand justice for the crimes committed against them when something happens to them, because nobody cares about victims' rights. And that's not, nobody can even have that level of conversation in good faith. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. So they're talking about these will help. They won't help. We don't have the people. And that's not how we should be doing it. We should be having precincts. We need to go back to the precinct model and the neighborhood model. There need to be police for each neighborhood, period, end of story. But we just don't have enough police officers for that. And you're like, well, Marcus, we could augment it with the sheriff or with the state troopers or whatever. Yeah, we could. But the sheriff are already overburdened, again, because of the same reasons why the city is overburdened, because of all of the anti-police rhetoric, people leaving, and because there's just so much more crime because of bail reform and raise the age laws that are encouraging the crime. So we've got that. And then we also have the issues where they don't even have enough officers for the sheriffs. And what do you call them? Deputies, right? Patrolmen, right? I guess I don't know if you call the deputies patrolmen if they're on patrol, but you know what I'm saying. So they don't have enough patrolmen, right? So they just got a big, nice new budget, extra budget, right? Extra budget to hire more officers, which is very awesome and very thankful. Still, With those extra numbers that they're looking to hire and looking to add on, they won't be able to augment the city. As a matter of fact, there's other places in the county that do not even have their own police. Henrietta just hired one constable because they needed somebody to respond when the sheriff wasn't able to. And the sheriff's office doesn't want to over police the city and expend all their resources in the city and then be left with a glut of crime in the rest of the county that nobody's addressing. And we have a city police force for a reason. But because of people like Stanley Martin, Kim Smith, and Mary Lupian pushing anti police rhetoric and anti public safety rhetoric, this is where we are with so many police have left. We're over 100 officers short. They say it's 100, but it's really more like 175, maybe even more than that. I can't tell you for sure because what happens is as these people are retiring, they're just counting that as a job that doesn't exist anymore. So they're not even including that in the calculation as an open position. So who actually really knows? All I know for sure is that even if it is just 100, we're missing a whole bunch of police officers, and that's a problem. Okay, it's a real serious problem, and a lot of people are trying to get off road patrol, and I'm not mad. I don't want to be chasing no butt face up and down the street. Drink water, y'all. Up and down the street, just so some city council members can admonish me for trying to protect the community that I swore to protect and serve. It's out of control. But back to the education and the crime, right? These people that are getting out, they can't get a job because they don't have any skills, which we need to change the curriculum for high school. We need to just squeeze high school into middle school because it's the same thing. I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about the curriculum, and then use high school to do on the job training and to use high school for collegiate pursuits if that's what people want to do. But we need to make it mostly for on the job training and skills training, specifically partnering with businesses and companies that or fields of work that need the actual people to work the positions, and they can matriculate out of school right into the workforce, limits that overlap with crime and stuff like that. Chris, what'd you say? You haven't had that much water today? Thank you for reminding you. You're very welcome. Everybody, make sure that you stay hydrated and drink water. But it's important that we remember that. Matter of fact, I'll give you a great example. So there's this program for the fire department, right? It used to be called Fire Explorers, and now they changed it to something else. And they put it in school where you can just go through high school, you go through the training, and then when you get out, you go right into the fire department. That's great because there's no lag time, there's no downtime, and then you already have a job out there waiting for you. Not only do we need these things in school, we need these things in jail, in prison, when people are getting out of prison. Like, we got to get into a job. Like, we got to have them have a means to be able to provide for themselves. Like, we got to make it accessible. Not everybody, listen, not everybody's going to want to be productive members of society. Let's not play with ourselves here. But we are going to need to make sure that we are assisting those who do want to succeed. It's like the homeless issue, right? Like, not all homeless people want to not be homeless. A lot of them want to be homeless. That is a lifestyle choice. Okay. But for those who don't want to be homeless, we need to make sure that we are investing in ways to help them move out of homelessness and get into jobs, rehab, addiction therapy, counseling, medication, or whatever it is that they need so that they can be productive members of society and actually get their own place, for those who do want to change. So that's an opportunity that needs to be addressed as well, separately. But to the schooling thing, if we were able to put people from school into training, into work, we would eliminate a lot of this crime because people would see a path forward for the future and a way to provide for themselves. Many of them are providing for their families right now while they're in school. You understand what I'm saying? So if that's the case, we need to make sure they're able to provide for themselves and see a way forward after school. Like, what the hell is school for if not to train you to be a productive, constructive member of society and job placement? Otherwise, you don't need school. Remember, like, ask your grandparents, right? Like, a lot of them didn't finish fifth grade and they went right into working or whatever the case is. Ask them if they're still around, you know, or you might have heard stories from them. But it's very, very, very important that we understand that the education impacts directly the crime and also the economy around us locally, because the economy is furnished people that are going to be working in this economy from the area in which they are. I mean, like, that's simple. Like, that's simple. Like, you don't need to be a genius. You don't need more than a third grade education to understand that concept. But it's really real, and we need to talk about this. But again, and this goes to differences in party. I'd like to talk about with the differences in party and policy. You know, I don't care what party you are, right? But I expect your policy to line up with what you're promising, right? So when you're in office, you need to be held accountable for by not only the people that voted for you, but by the people that didn't vote for you and everybody else that didn't even vote at all, that are constituents in the area that you represent. And if you are on the state level, while you might just represent one specific area, you're really representing the whole state because you're putting forth laws that impact the whole state, not just your one small area, you know? And that is desperately needed to be noted because there's no civics in school anymore. You might get 6 months of participation in government if you're lucky, which honestly isn't enough because most people don't know what the mayor does. Most people don't know what county ledge does. Most people don't know what city council or town board does or any of that. And they definitely don't know what the congressmen, House of Representatives do. They don't know what the Senate does. They don't know what the president even does. And everybody has conceptions. They think that this person's in charge of this and that person's in charge of that, but they're always yelling at this person for something that they should be yelling at this person about. And that's why nothing gets done and we don't ever see any differences. But do you think that they tell us that? No, because the politicians like the broke system. And who are in power in our area? The Democrats. Now, that's not me laying into the Democrats. It's just a fact. 50 years, only Democrats have been in office. Maybe it's time for a change. Now, I was talking to a lady this morning, and I was telling her we had a very, very good discussion, and she's considerably liberal. Okay, in comparison to my point of view, which is more constitutional and more conservative. But she's considerably liberal, and that is if you're counting differences, that's past Democrat. It goes Democrat, liberal, progressive, complete socialist, communist, totalitarian dictatorship. So that's how it goes. What'd you say, Dan? Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Dan says your messaging is on point. Keep it up. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. But it's very important that we understand that while we might be from different parties, while we might be from different backgrounds, the concept that we share a commonality in what we want to see as an end result is in general similar amongst most reasonable people, right? Like everybody that's not extreme socialism or extreme right wing, which I don't even know what is on the extreme right wing, because they try to say that it's like Nazis, but Nazis was a National Socialist Workers Party, which is really all the way on the left. So I don't even really honestly know what is on the far right, but any extremity is not it. Any extremity is not it. But the interesting conversation with her was this. We definitely shared common thoughts on what should be the end result. And she enjoyed hearing everything that I was talking about up until the point when I told her, when she asked me, what was I a part of a Democratic committee? I said, no, I said, I'm a Republican. And then she was aghast and she couldn't understand how these statements were coming out of a Republican's mouth. But the point is that she has a misconception of what the Republicans are, what their values are. And I got to be honest, I'm not mad at her. And it's not her fault. Because again, for 50 years, the Democrats have run everything, and this is Democratic messaging. They are carrying the water for Republicans, saying what the Republican Party is about, and they're saying terrible things about the Republican Party that aren't true. But it doesn't even matter, right? Because where are the Republicans to counter and rebuttal that when in the city specifically, we haven't even been running running any candidates for office because people have just given up on the city. Hell, most of the people that are Democrats in the city have given up on the city and don't even vote at all because they don't feel like they have any options. But I tell you what, we are restoring the Republican Party in the city. And if you feel as though the Democratic Party has stepped away from their true values traditionally and they've gone too far and they're out of sorts, y'all reach out to me and let's have a conversation and see if there's room for you and what you really truly believe. But let's go back to the conversation I had with this left lady, right? So it was a great conversation, and I love having conversations with anybody. And if you guys follow me or read any of my stuff or watch me or listen to me on the radio or whatever, you guys know I'm open for conversation and debate and constructive work with anybody in collaboration. I was out this morning at the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition, which I do some stuff with them. And you can say, but Marcus, you're a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment. How can you do stuff with them? Who else is going to? Who else is going to? If not me, then who? Who's going to do it? If not me, then who? Who is going to be a moderating voice in the room and going to listen and put in the input that's necessary to put in to try to moderate, to keep things from going far off on a tangent that's very dangerous for the rest of the community and will end up restricting people's Second Amendment rights? Somebody has to be that voice. Somebody has to stand up. Plus, honestly, the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition, there's a lot of stuff that's in there that I like. I think the resource allocation and connecting people with resources, I think that's very good. That's very, very big to me. And there are people that are in that group that are very strong on public safety, that want something done about amending bill reform and raise the age. And Lord willing, we'll be able to get them to address that. That's a sticking point. But if you do want to address that type of an issue, I do have another group that addresses that specifically, policy for the state and policy on the state and legislation on the state level. It's called Rock Unite, ROC Unite. And the website for them is restorerochester.com. That website again is restorerochester.com. And definitely check out Rock Unite if you're concerned about the crime and you want action taken by our elected officials, because Rock Unite is all about that and encouraging them to do that. They've been doing rallies and stuff to actually show that there are people willing to stand up and speak up about these very serious issues. And it's a growing movement of more and more people. We've proposed 10 points to our elected officials on the state assembly and on the state senate. We've got a couple more offices to go visit, and then we've got some other action points to take, because this is a very important issue, and we all, no matter what party you are, need to be addressing this issue. And Rock Unite is a non-political, I shouldn't say it like that, is a non-partisan group in which everybody is welcome. And if you go to the website, restorerochester.com, you can find out the 10 points that we're looking to get adjusted in the law. You can sign up in our sign up for further contact information, and you can get updates on when our next stuff and things are. And you can go to our Facebook page, Rock Unite, where we post stuff on there as well. But that's not back to the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition. There's good work that's to be done there. There's good work that's to be done there. And we need to recognize that even if we don't agree with everybody on everything, which we're never going to go agree with everybody on everything, we need to work together on the things that we can work together on. It's that simple. It's not very complicated. Somebody said, "Oh, how could you be up there and you don't agree with everything that they're saying?" And I'm not going to agree with anybody 100%. I don't agree with my family 100% on everything. Hell, I don't agree with my family on necessarily a lot of things. I'm sure you don't either. I don't agree with my best friends on a lot of things. Hell, I don't agree with the people in my party all the time. You're never going to agree with everybody all the time. There's a saying, and I don't want to faultily attribute it to somebody that didn't say it, but somebody look it up and drop it in the comments. I want to say maybe it was Nixon or Reagan. I can't remember. I want to say it was Nixon, but he said, and I'm paraphrasing, don't give up a 80% ally for 20% that you disagree with. We have to work together on the issues that we see, and we shouldn't just be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's good work to be done there. And there are very much so parts that I agree with and parts that I disagree with. When I disagree with something, let it be known. When I agree with it, I vehemently agree with it. Yes, I'm all in support of it. It's very important. Let's do that. Or no, have we considered doing it this way? Maybe we can take a look at it this way. Maybe we should focus more here. But these are the things that we need to make sure that we are actually doing. We need to be part of the conversation. If you're not part of the conversation, you're just giving lip service online. So I can't deal with, excuse my language, I'm unwilling to deal with people that are contemptuous of others who are actually out there working to get stuff done and achieve stuff. So I've got my own group that we work specifically as a apolitical organization, nonpartisan, to address the bill reform and raise the age and public safety issues. I'm part of another group that's a faith-based group, United Health and Healing of Monroe County, and they address it through the faith aspect, and resources and stuff like that. And I do the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition. Okay, we've got to work all together to help encourage, and not just encourage, but accomplish things. Because we are all one community. Everybody's not going to agree on everything all the time. But together we can move forward and we can make a better, safer community for everyone. Today I was out, and this goes back into the resources thing. Today I was out doing evangelism. So if you're not familiar with evangelism, it's the encouraging people to come to Jesus, to come to the Lord, to repent of their sins, to express gratitude for the Lord, and to help them fill that hole that's empty because they really need the Lord in them. Which now you'll say, "Oh, well, Marcus, not everybody is all Jesus-y, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." Now let me clarify something for you. Okay. Let's say you're not very religious. First of all, I'm going to say, I really encourage you to check out this dude. His name is Jesus. He was a great teacher, and he came to teach us about the ways of the Lord and to teach us that we should repent for the stuff that we are doing that is unjust and is against the laws of God. Because if you look at the laws of the Lord in the Bible and you look at that, we've got so much stuff in the Bible that sets out moral values, right? Moral values that we should uphold, right? And then when we talk about moral values, you say, okay, well, where do you get moral values from? Well, in the case of Christianity, or most people, right? Not even just Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, whatever else. They get it. They get their sense of morality and values from their religions, right? So now if you take that over into what do you call it? Into psychology, you've got the ego, the id and the superego. And the superego is your set of values that are core ingrained into you, that are usually imparted on you by your family, by your community, by your religion. Now, considering that most people aren't getting a lot of the religion that they need to set up those morals and values when they're young, and they don't have the guidance of parents like they used to, they're not getting that morals and values set. So their super ego, essentially their God, right? Whereas my God is the Lord Almighty, somebody else's God might be Allah, or somebody else's God might be Vishnu. Okay, which there's the debate can be go on. Oh, Marcus isn't Allah the same God as it? We're not doing that tonight. We're not playing them games. But the point is, maybe your God is Vishnu, right? So that's the leader that you get your values set from, or whatever the case is. And no, don't come for me if you're Hindu. Oh, but there are all these other. I'm not. That you get exactly the point that I'm making. Okay, boom. Anyway, so that's where you get your morals and values from. If you lack those morals and values, if those are not set early in life, then you see all of this crazy crime and violence and everything outside. You see these debaucherous depravity and people running around in the street, butt naked with dildos strapped on their forehead, jumping at kids and trying to dance with the kids, the children. And I'm not making this up. This is real stuff. This is stuff that's happening right now. People are going outside in bondage gear, parading around like it's cool, like it's something to do. Ugh. And not ugh because it's ugh because they're doing that. It's ugh because it's ugh because that's your private personal business, bro. Keep that junk in your trunk, in your basement, in your dungeon. Okay? Don't bring that out here with everybody else. And Chris, I see you right there. Chris says, "Yeah, I see too many people. I see too many Americans sticking to their parties and being divided instead of advocating for change together." That's exactly what we need to do, Chris. You're 100% right. Because what ends up happening is, if people knew and understood that we have more commonalities than differences, then we would actually unite, and the elites at the top really wouldn't want that. And that would be a problem for the elites. So they try to do everything they can to divide us, whether it's race, sexual orientation, gender identity, or whatever cool thing they picked out last Thursday. Don't get me started. It's madness. They find any way to divide us. But this is a real issue, and we need to make sure that we are not being divided so much and so easily. But back to what I was saying about people needing the Lord and me being out evangelizing. So I was out evangelizing. We did some at RTS this morning. No, that's not true. It was this afternoon. In the afternoon, and then after that, we went to Jefferson. So not the school, the avenue. So we were over there, and we were witnessing to this lady, and she was smoking crack. Well, she wasn't actively smoking crack at that very second, but she was very clearly jacked up, and she had a crack pipe in her hand. And now we prayed for this lady. She repented. She admitted Christ as her savior. And now she needs follow-up care. What am I supposed to do with that, right? Like, she's got a crack pipe in her hand. She's accepted the Lord. She clearly wants to change her ways and work to be a better individual. What am I supposed to do? I don't know anything to do with who's going to take her. And it's very interesting, right? Because I know quite a few people that do different things as far as recovery and stuff like that. But still, I wasn't sure exactly who to direct her to as far as it went with what she's going to do as far as recovery, right? Not like long-term recovery, but like at this point into recovery, which is the immediately, she needs access, she needs transportation to a place, she needs to be picked up, She's saying that she wants better for herself. Who do I call, and who's able to help out with that right now immediately? And it didn't immediately come to mind. Well, I was going through it afterward and it still didn't come to mind. But those are the resources, right? And the follow-up care that needs to be done that's not being done. And it's not just her, right? It's not just addiction. It's also mental health. Who is providing these services? Who is going to come get these people? Is there an in-person? Is there an inpatient thing for these people, especially with the mental health? And the general answer is no, there is not. It doesn't really exist. For the addiction, there is certain stuff out there, but I know there's a lot of red tape with a lot of the things. And I know there aren't any longer a lot of faith-based initiatives for recovery. And you'll say, Marcus, well, that's just because you're Christian. And I'll say, no, I say that's because it's been factually proven and verified by many, many studies that in order to have the greatest success, you need to be in a faith-based recovery program. Because the concept of recovery in a faith-based program is the first thing that you've got to admit is that there's a greater power than you. And a lot of people out there nowadays in society think that they're God, they're head honcho, they're number one. And that ain't it, y'all. That's not it at all. You're not number one. The Lord is number one on top. The creator of all, the creator of the universe. Not some demigod that just rules the planet. Okay, the creator of all, the ruler of the universe, the one who fashioned all the planets and all the stars and brought existence out of nothing. So we have to be very cognizant that if people are to become better people, excuse me, I gotta plug this camera in, it's dying. If people are to be better people, we have to make sure that we are setting them up for success. That means that we need to be setting them up with the morals and values that are going to be able to help them not only be a better person, but actually be a whole person, right? And not absent of the Lord, because the Lord solves so many problems within someone's heart that I'm not able even to. I don't want to. This video is already 2 hours. I think we've gone a long time tonight. Usually we only do about 1 hour, maybe an hour and 30. But really, people need the Lord in their life. And I encourage you, if you don't know the Lord, get a Bible. Just start reading it. It doesn't matter where, just start reading it and keep reading it. Don't give up on it. Read it. Read it good. And if you find somebody that you like, that's a preacher or that's a church that you like, that you think is good for you, check them out. Maybe they can help you. Maybe they can help you grow in the spirit of the Lord. But it's something that's missing, and it's something that needs to happen more. But again, there's a lot of stuff in the community that we need resources for, and we need follow-up care for, that nobody knows where to get it from or where to go. And we have to do better as individuals and as groups of people, letting people know about what resources are out there. I was talking to somebody at Rochester Works today. They do Rochester Works does like job placement and stuff. They largely focus on youth under 25, but they can help with older people, but they really don't do it like that, which is, I think, is a mistake. But that's a whole separate conversation. Or maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe it's not a mistake, right? Maybe somebody else can fill that gap that's not already being filled, right? So that's an opportunity. But I was talking to them and they were saying, oh yeah, we've got these resources, that resources, this, that, and the third. And they were talking about one thing that they did specifically. And I was like, oh, do you partner with the schools on that? They said, oh, well, we talked to certain schools about it. And if they want us to bring programs in there, we can, or we could, but we don't really. And I'm like, what? But this program will be great for school to help get people matriculated into jobs right out of school. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, the schools don't. See, and that was the issue. The schools don't. So these resources are out here and they're not being used, and people don't know about them to get them to use them. And there are, I guess you would call them, what would you call them? I don't want to call them gatekeepers, right? But there are those who believe that they know what is best without giving people the options that are out there that may also benefit them in their productivity, not just in life, but in success, in business, and providing for their families. And this is just one aspect of many things. So when we were having this conversation, I was like, wow, that's really kind of weird. Something needs to be done about that. We both agreed, and hopefully something comes of that, and then the schools do take up that particular program. But it's neither here nor there. The fact is that there are many resources out there that you or I or nobody actually knows about that exist. And we have to find them and we have to share them out and let people know that they're going on. Otherwise, they won't be utilized to maximum capacity, and we'll continue to see insanity in our community and neighborhood and nation. But, it is what it is, and we need to do better as individuals. And like I was saying earlier, we need to come together and we need to work together as a whole, as a collective whole, as a society, as Americans, because we are all Americans, and we need to focus on ourselves, and which is the American people. We've got so many issues. We don't have time for issues that are in foreign lands. We don't have time for illegal aliens. We've got tons of illegal aliens here on social services right now, but we got homeless and drug addicts and people that need help and programs that don't have the adequate funding and other programs that need more connection with resources and all of this. And that money can be going back to our own people. But instead, we're sending it overseas. Instead, we're funneling it to illegal immigrants, that's a story, illegal aliens, because they're not immigrants, because they're not going through the right immigration process. We're funneling it everywhere but to where we need it, and that's a problem. We've got a failing energy grid, we've got a failing water grid, we've got failing infrastructure. The roads are terrible, the dams are terrible, everything's terrible. But we're funneling money to every other country and everywhere else and every other cause except the American cause, except the homeland. We are not taking care of our homeland and our people. We must take care of Americans first. America must be prioritized by Americans, and we cannot focus on everybody else until we fix our house. And that's going to be my message for you today. America first. We need to fix our house before we worry about fixing our neighbor's house. Remember, when you're in the plane, they say if the mask drops down, you put your mask on first and then you put on your child's. So if that's how you do it there, you know what that means that we need to do here. You guys be blessed and be well. I'll catch you later. And remember, stand up, speak up, and don't shut up.